Welcome back to this week's Parsha Show. As always, the Parsha Show is brought to you in conjunction with the Weiss Entertainment Network, 613 on Yudal. This week's Parsha, as you see in the picture, is Parsha Lech Lecha. So we mentioned in last week's Parsha that there were 10 generations between Noach to Avram. So the Chumash is transitioning out of the story of Noach and into the story of Abraham. We know there are many midrashim about Abraham. Abraham fought against idols, even broke the idols of his father. He discovered Hashem by looking at the sun and realizing that the sun wasn't the true God and the moon wasn't the true God. He realized that there was something above him. He showed complete faith in Hashem, as the Torah tells us that Hashem tells him to come El Haaretz Asher. Hashem leads him to Eretz Yisrael, but he doesn't tell him where it is. And Abraham, in an act of complete faith, followed Hashem. The Torah also tells us that Abraham was the source of bracha, that Hashem told him that whoever blesses you, I will bless, whoever curses you, I will curse. The Torah then goes on and tells us that Abraham was 75 at this time when he left Haran. And the Torah tells us some of the places that Abraham came to. He came to Shechem and Elon Moreh, and then he came to Beit El, and then the Torah says how he built the Mizbeach to Hashem in these places. A short time after Abraham came to Eretz Yisrael, we see that he had to deal with a famine. There was a famine, Ra'av, in the land. And what did that force him to do? Vayered Mitzrayim. He went down to Mitzrayim. This is like a picture of the pyramids. Now, when he comes to Mitzrayim, he's afraid that the people will see Sarah and they will say that, well, that's your wife, who will kill you, and then we'll take Sarah. So Sarah made an agreement that she'll say that she's his sister, and Paro bought into that. It says, Paro lachat Sarah. Paro takes Sarah, and then a plague breaks out in his house. And then Paro realizes that it was a mistake taking Sarah, and has a whole exchange with Abraham about, why didn't you say that? Why didn't you say that? Why did you tell me that he was your sister? And eventually Paro gives Abraham a lot of wealth. And when they come back to Eretz Yisrael, they come back, after returning Sarah, they come back with an extreme amount of wealth. Now, Lot, who went along with the story, also came back with a tremendous amount of wealth. And it says that they were so wealthy that the land couldn't hold them, because there was, between the two of them, they had so much wealth. There was a battle between the land. And what happened was that a fight broke out between Abraham's shepherds and Lot's shepherds. And then the Torah says, so what was the story? So the story was that the famous medrash that Abraham always muzzled his animals. And Abraham always insisted that the animals be muzzled. And what happened is that Lot didn't do that, and Lot let his animals graze in everybody else's field. And what happened was Lot made a calculation that Abraham has no children, and therefore the land is given to me. But the truth is, the land was not given to Abraham; the land was given to us, his children. And that was the miscalculation that Lot made. Anyway, Abraham comes to Lot and says, I don't want to have a fight with you. And he tells him, you pick the land, as you see in the picture, the standing. Abraham points to the land and says, you go in one direction and I'll go in the other direction. And that's what happened. Lot goes towards Sodom and Abraham goes his own way. Now, in the Parsha, there's a famous story of the war of the 4 and 5 kings. So in the middle of the story, it says that Lot was captured. And that's when Abraham took charge. It says the Vayevoah Palit. The Medrash tells us that the Palit was none other than Og Melech HaBashan, who had ulterior motives in reporting to Abraham about what was taking place. His goal was that Abraham should be killed in battle and he should take Sarah. But of course that does not fully work out. Anyway, when Abraham hears that Lot was captured in the battle, so it says he gathers his army. He gathers 318 men. The Medrash brings down that the gematria of Eliezer is 318, and in fact only Abraham and Eliezer went out to battle. And in a miraculous fashion, Abraham wins the war, and then he meets up with the king of Sodom. And the king of Sodom offers him a tremendous amount of booty, of stuff to take. And Abraham tells him not a shoelace and not a string, I'll not take anything from you. And what happens is that in the Medrash tells us because Abraham said not a string or a shoelace that we were given the mitzvah of tzitzis. And the idea was that Abraham said to the king of Sodom that if I take anything from you, you're going to walk around and say that I'm the one who made Abraham rich. And I cannot, under any circumstances, allow that to take place. So for that reason, it's brought down that Abraham was rewarded. The Torah also tells us that Abraham met Malki Tzedek, and Malki Tzedek offered him bread and wine, and it says that he was Melech Shalem. Chazal tell us he was the king of Yerushalayim, and so there are a lot of different things that are going on here in this parsha. Now, also in this parsha is the story of what's called Bris Bein Abisara. Abraham questions Hashem, and he says to him, "How do I know that I'm really going to inherit?" And Hashem goes through this whole story where he takes all of the animals. That's why it's called the covenant of the parts, because he's to cut up all the animals except for the dove, and the dove represents the Jewish people. In the middle of this story, Abraham is told that we're going to be slaves for 400 years, and then we're going to come out a very wealthy nation. Now, before we get to the mitzvah of Bris Milah, we should mention that the whole conflict between Sarai and Abraham and the birth of Ishmael also takes place. Sarah gives up on having children and gives over Hagar to Abraham as a wife. Ishmael is born, and then Sarah gets very upset, and then she runs away, and then eventually they come back, and anyway, Ishmael was born. Now, after that, and the end of the parsha, the mitzvah of Bris Milah is given. The mitzvah of Bris Milah, as you know, we have on the 8th day, the bris has to take place. All males, in this case, all the males that belong to Abraham. Now, Bris Milah is also repeated at Har Sinai, but it is the idea of the Bris Milah is to remind us that we're not created perfect, and that we always have to work on ourselves, and we always have to improve ourselves. And Bris Milah is one of those signs that differentiate us between the other nations of the world. It's a sign that not only are we spiritually devoted to Hashem, but we're physically devoted to Hashem as well. And these are the basic highlights of this week's parsha. Hope you enjoyed and have a good Shabbos, and we'll talk next week. This ends today's program in Parshas Lech Lecha.